Mirror man, you twist and turn my mind until I don't know who I am. Mirror man.
Good morning and welcome to a new edition of the Arsenal Opinion Podcast. There's 4 people on the screen today. It's Johnny Cochrane, it's Jacob Hawley, it's Matt Kandela. We have united, we have come together. It's like the Power Rangers. Something crazy is going to happen. The crazy thing is the season's predictions. We've got a big show ahead. I've got to redeem myself after putting Fabio Vieira in my dark horse 2 seasons running. Will I go a third? Who knows? Welcome to the show, everybody. How are we feeling on the eve of the Premier League season?
Yeah, delicious, to be fair, really good. And I'm pleased that I'm actually here in the recording that would usually be Thursday Therapy. There are rumours in the AOP fraternity on the streets, you know, at the water cooler, that I am not allowed on the same pod as Jacob Hawley because there's just too much comedians in one space. And that's not true. In fact, it's a much more simple explanation. My 1-year-old has a toddler class at the same time that you guys done it. I think you've done it at that time specifically to keep me and Jacob away. But there we go. We're back today, and it's Megazord time for the AOP. I'm pleased to be here.
This is not good for me and Matt. This is like going to a bar with 2 really good-looking mates, and you're just sort of sitting on the side. That's me and Matt today.
Ironically, we're comedians. We're comedians, so it's actually the complete opposite. We're ugly, funny people, and you two are actually annoyingly quite good-looking. So thanks for reminding us of that one, lads.
All right, we've got an action-packed show to get into. Do we even do a hottest of takes today? Do we just get into
I think we go straight in.
All the takes are hot.
Fine.
Every take is hot
All
today.
the takes are hot. All right, so the way that we're going to do it, we'll do a bit of outside Arsenal chatter, and then we'll move into the chunky stuff. The Patreon listeners have submitted some of their views, so it'll be interesting to compare and contrast. But first one that we're going to go to today, and Johnny, we're going to go to you for this one because we haven't actually spoken about it at all. First managerial sacking of the season. There's a lot of candidates out there that could be contenders. Johnny, where are you going for your first managerial sacking of the Premier League season 24-25?
This is a tricky one, really, because, like you say, there's a few people that could end up in that boat. But I want to go for a team that has shown that they're willing to pull the trigger, perhaps a little bit prematurely in the past. And I'm going to go with Wolves, actually, and I'm going to go with O'Neill. I think that he did a good job last year, but I actually think that some of the lack of business that they've done might lead their board to get a little bit tetchy again. And I don't think that he was the kind of romantic name that they wanted in the first place, having gone for Lopetegui in the past. So I think that if things don't quite go the way, and I think they're going to get smashed up in the first game on Saturday, I think it could end up being a bit of a snowball, and you might see Gary O'Neill out before Christmas.
All right, it's spicy. That is very spicy. Jacob Hawley, where are you going with your first one?
Ten Hag. Mate, if your wife goes around town going on dinner dates with everyone available and she comes home on Sunday and says, no, let's give it another go, you know you're on thin ice. And that's what they did over the summer. And you know that the man she wants, Southgate, strangely, is on the market. Mate, 4 or 5 games. I think he could be gone by October, honestly. I think it's 10 Hag.
They got the trigger.
Everything they've done over the summer makes no sense whatsoever. How can Xerxes help your team when he plays in the exact same position as the striker you bought for 80 million quid last summer? You can't get on the pitch. Still no right winger, still no 6. And the 6 they're looking at, Ugarte, he's not made for the Premier League. He hasn't got the technique to play the ball forward to Mainu. In terms of centre-backs, they've just bought another tugboat. They've just bought another wardrobe. If Martinez is injured, they've still just got big lads who can't run, who won't be able to play the high line. And there's just going to be that great big gap in midfield again. They haven't addressed anything. And I think Ten Hag is so clearly on thin ice. I cannot believe they're still letting him spend money. And Southgate is there just waiting. And it won't take long.
New era, same as the old era.
I want to live in the world. I want an insight into the world where Jacob Hawley's sitting there by the fireplace drinking a whiskey, and his wife comes in, and Jacob goes, "You've been out with Southgate again, haven't you? Haven't you? I'm not taking you back this time." I love that. Well, that picture you painted for us, Jacob.
That would be a horrible. As a top flight manager, you've managed around the world, you've won big trophies, and you know that your wife is looking at Southgate. You'd be upsetting. Matt Kandela, where are you going to go? We've had United Wolves. Where can you possibly take this that's spicier?
I am going to go for Nuno Espirito Santo.
Ooh.
Because the reality is, the thing about Man United is, yes, they're going to be terrible, but they're also going to win some games. And yes, Newcastle are going to be underperforming ultimately, but they're still going to win some games. So I'm looking at a club that could easily lose 5 on the bounce early doors, because that's the thing that really gets the trigger pulled. And when I'm looking in the Premier League and I'm thinking about teams that could lose 5 on the bounce, I'm thinking of a team like Nottingham Forest. They've got PSR issues. They've got a strange ownership group. They've got a really shit manager. And I'm going to go Nuno. Pull the trigger.
That is, that's pretty sharp. That's pretty sharp there. I said it the other day. I don't know whether I'm going to be right at some point in the season. I'm going to throw it out. This is an aggressive one. I could be wrong. I think Eddie Howe is on the chopping block for sure. I think a bad start, but it's very possible they could have a bad start. I don't think Newcastle have really done a lot to address major squad issues. They've had a lot of change. Paul Mitchell's come in as technical director. Eddie Howe's already complaining in the media. He did a wild press conference where it was like, don't get in the way of what I'm trying to do here. I love the club. And I just think that sort of chatter before a ball's even kicked, I think if he has a bad start, there could be quick change there because he had a bad season last year. Newcastle fans are super forgiving of him, but I don't think the new technical director will be. So I'm going to say Eddie Howe. All right, let's move on to the next topic. This is, again, Jake, I'm going to go to you first on this one because this is casting jealous eyes, the theme of your last section. Who is the best non-Arsenal summer this signing? Who did you look at and see there? You know, Spurs are signing Dominic Solanke. I really wanted a piece of that. Who's that player that another club's signing that you think is going to absolutely bang in the Premier League this year?
Can I just say, I mean, there's 2 things I want to say first. First of all, I want to nip in the bud this whole thing that people keep cheating on me. Second, I think this is a really difficult one to answer. I don't know about you. There aren't loads of players who've moved in this window already who I go, he's great. I wish we'd been in there. Like, there's just not many. I mean, it's been a bit of a dead window, as we've spoken about a few times. The one who I look at, who I think is actually quite a smart signing, and I think there's so much value if you go down the leagues in the Football League, Somerville, that West Ham bought from Leeds. When Leeds were in the Premier League last, I thought he looked like a really, really sharp player. I think West Ham are quietly putting together a really, really nice team. The only reason I would change that, I'm going to go with Somerville, but it looks like Evan Nielsen might be going to Brighton. Have you seen that? That's just come out today. That would be interesting, but I'm going to stick with Somerville for now.
Okay, all right. Matt Kandela, where are you going to go? Which player has moved that you would have loved a piece of?
I agree with everything that everyone said, but I would still go Pedro Neto. I think we're still in urgent need of a right winger. We haven't got a replacement for Saka. It's turning into Arsene Wenger not buying a defensive midfielder for 10 years. It's turning into a saga now. I don't see a right winger happening. I see some type of durable forward potentially, but not an out-and-out right winger. And I think for 60 million, and I know Gabriel scored more goals, and I know he scored about 5 goals in 2 years, and I know all of that. But the reality is he passes the eye test for me, and he would have been a really lethal weapon to add to our toolbox. And, you know, with our medical team and our support team and the overall system and structure that exists within our club, I think he would have been a success, and I think he would have got minutes. So Pedro Neto. But it's a tallest dwarf competition, let's be honest.
Yeah. Can I give you a tasty one to put on the back of that? Matt, I'd bet you a score, end of this season, Pedro Neto has 4 goals.
All right, I'll take that.
Ooh, okay.
Mate, it'll start 9 games, 4 goals. I don't think he'll get on the pitch.
All right, Johnny, where are you going? Which player did you look at and you're like, whoa, would like that?
It's not necessarily... See, this is the thing, and we talk about this stuff all the time, but it's not necessarily the case of a player that we would look as Arsenal and go, oh, we'd love to have them in, because we are now shopping, you know, in the taste the difference section in the shop. We're not out there just trying to fill up on general groceries anymore. So there's not many players I'm like, oh. So there's a couple. One of them is Arsenal linked. That I do think Emile Smith-Rowe will be a very good signing for Fulham.
Ooh.
Very good signing. I think he's already shown that he has got a lot to offer. But was it Jacob? Yeah, I think it was Jacob who mentioned West Ham. And there was two signings that popped up for me. And one of them's a little bit out of left field, but I think it's going to end up being a really good signing. So one, they got Fulkrug as well, which was quite an interesting one. I think he might do well. And I do think Solanke, I know we don't like to big up Tottenham, think Solanke at Tottenham, but Aaron Wan-Bissaka moving from Man U to West Ham, he is a much, much better player than what he has looked lately. And he's given me vibes of Wilfried Zaha when he went to Man United. It just didn't work out. They were trying to use him in a way he weren't ready for. And ultimately, he ended up going back to Palace and becoming, for what he was, a very, very good Prem player. And I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka will go back to being one of the best fullbacks in the league. He won't have that attacking output that many of the top fullbacks have. But I expect West Ham to be a lot more defensively sound. And he's one of the best, when he's at his best, one of the best one-on-one man defenders in the league. So I think he's going to end up coming really good for them.
He's so David Moyes. He's so David Moyes. Like, that is the David Moyes fullback. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't overlap, doesn't even really want to pass the ball, just defend.
But it'll be interesting with Lopetegui now. Like, they're going to be very interesting. I think he'll get them really, really, queued up and ready to roll. And I just think Wan-Bissaka looks like he might be able to slip in and make them a little bit more defensively sound because they were porous last year.
Lopetegui is either going to be incredible or absolutely dire, isn't he? There's no in between with him. He turned down Bayern Munich for West Ham. All right, that's a spicy one, Johnny. I'm going to go. Douglas Luiz is the player that I saw exit a club. He's the one that I wanted. I feel like I thought he had Arsenal written all over him. A little bit under the radar. Nobody really rates him. Was part of an immense Aston Villa midfield last year. He's robust. He'd been on our agenda for a while. He goes to Juve for 51 million. I just feel like that was a lot of value in that player. Ready-made, ready to go. 25 years old. Could have picked up the pieces from Thomas Partey. So he's the player that I'm looking at. That I feel a deep amount of regret. I don't even know how Juventus afforded that.
Were you talking? I thought you meant it had to be in the Premier League. To be fair. I think Jacob and Matt are nodding on as well. Otherwise, I'll go Mbappe, to be honest. He's already scoring goals. So I'll just plump from Mbappe to Real Madrid. I'll change it from Aaron Wan-Bissaka and we'll go for Kylian Mbappe.
Listen. I'm right.
Pete, have you got a Prem one? Have you got a Prem
I'm
one?
right in the Premier League ones. Actually, this is a little bit like Savinho, the guy who's part of the Manchester City group who's just moved there. I didn't know much about him, and I watched a little bit of him at Copa America. He looks pretty tasty, boys. He looks like
not
he's
really a transfer, though, is it? That's more human trafficking than a transfer.
I don't make accusations on this podcast. All right, let's move on to the next topic. This one, there's no caveats, there's no hidden rules of this. Johnny, going to go to you first on this one. Most likely to fall foul of Mikel Arteta. Somebody's going to breach the non-negotiables this year. Who is it? Are we post non-negotiables? What's going on? What do we think?
It's weird how you want to. This is one of those questions where it depends how you take the spirit of the question, because is it full foul based on just not being able to, produce ultimately when you're on the pitch, or is it turning up in your, iridescent Lamborghini 20 minutes late every week, the way that we've seen in the past? But if it's in terms of breaking rules, I think Gabriel would be that person. Bearing in mind that Big Gabby, bearing in mind that we saw something at the start of last season. Weirdly, I don't know why this is, because I just love Gab, and I don't think you could break up Phil and Grant at this stage. Like, it would hurt. But obviously, we've got a new geezer in, a very good-looking Italian man who wants to come in, and he wants some minutes, some game time. And if for some reason Arteta wanted to run with Calafiori in the team instead of Gab, I don't think Gab's at this stage going to sit down and just accept it willy-nilly. So he would probably be the most likely to fall foul from a disciplinary point of view. In terms of just, I don't think you've kind of got it anymore. Like out of the big players, the most obvious, like Zinchenko and people like that, if they foul. But otherwise, Martinelli, I think, out of the ones, if he doesn't get it together, I think he might find himself bench warming more than he plays.
Spicy. Matt Kandela, who's most likely to fall foul of a non-negotiable or just fall out of favour, fall from the heavens? You've muted yourself.
If he stays, Aaron Ramsdale, because his dad's going to go on a podcast and say Arteta's a wanker. It's just going to happen. And Aaron Ramsdale's been a great teammate to everyone. Apparently he's brilliant in the England camp. But another year of being forced to be a bench warmer and clap every time David Raya makes a save is going to send him over the edge. He'll erupt. He won't be able to make it. I think he'll probably go. So if he's not here, Leandro Trossard, known to moan, known to complain to Arteta. James McNicholas, Gunner Blog, said it had been an issue last year. Martinelli needs to get back on form. I'm going to hope he does. Trossard's going to complain about game time and opportunity.
Spicy, Jacob Hawley. Where are we going to go with this one? They've already taken 2 off the table. Aaron Ramsdale's bringing a pint and an Indian into the dressing room, a la Chesney in the cigarette. Where are you going to take yours?
Maybe full foul of Arteta is the wrong way of putting it, but I think Fabio Vieira's done. I just think he's done. I don't think he'll get a move. I don't think we'll be able to shift him, but I think he's completely done at the club. In terms of like first 11 players who might not have the season we'd hope, I think Jesus and Martinelli are both on that make or break now. And I think either of them could I think we could get to next summer and either of them are basically for sale, I think we're going to try and do Havertz 8, Jesus 9 for as many games as we can. Jesus has got to pull his weight because the standard Havertz set as a number 9 at the end of last season was high. And if we start seeing similar problems to what we've had with Jesus in the past, dropping too deep, not having the legs to get in the box, I think he'll get cut out pretty fast.
Okay, I like that. I'm going to go a little bit curveball on this. Carlos Cuesta. This is going to be the big challenge for Mikel Arteta this season. I don't know whether you noticed, he got a bit of a write-up in the New York Times as the next generational manager coming through. There are rumours that Ben Napper, ex-loans guy at Arsenal, was going to take him to Norwich. This is a guy on the rise, and I think he might get a few knocks on the door. Generational coach, someone else will fancy replicating what Arsenal are doing. Maybe Brighton come in for him after their American manager fails. So I'm going to say that this is going to be a big season for Carlos Cuesta. Can he resist the overtures? And what happens if you overshadow the master?
And I've got to say, just to push back on Jacob's one, I know you were saying you're a bit sceptical that Fabio Vieira is going to get any time this year, but I honestly think there's a position at ball boy ahead for him. I think he can get some serious game time there, up and down. So let's not, cut our losses straight away. He could be in there, maybe a mascot.
If he gets another red card when he comes on, Arteta is going to lose his mind.
Oh, yeah, he's gone. He's gone.
All right, let's move on. This will be an interesting one. Who is going to be Arsenal's 2024-25 bogey team, Jacob?
I still don't like Aston Villa. I don't like Aston Villa. They've been the most active team in the transfer market. I know they've lost Luiz, but I thought Onana actually looked pretty good for Belgium during the Euros. I think that's a decent signing. Emery fucking hates us, and you haven't helped, Pete, the amount of blogs you wrote about him at the time. That's going to be one. If we do get the win in 10 days' time, I'm going to breathe a massive sigh of relief because I hate going there, hate playing that team. And I don't know about you, but that memory of going to their place last year, the loss, I think, was it a 1-0 loss? And there was a Havertz goal disallowed near the end. That was, I hated that game so much. And yeah, I'm really gutted we've got them second. I've got to be honest. So yeah, Villa for me.
Matt, where are you going with this one?
I was going to go Villa, but I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go Bayern Munich. I think we're going to draw Bayern Munich again in the Champions League, and I think they're going to hurt us. And I think before the game, we're all going to be like, this is the time. They can't hurt us again. They've hurt us for the last 15 times we played them, and then they're going to do it again. So my bogey team is Bayern Munich. I hate them.
Johnny, where are you going to go? It's hard to. I mean, this Arsenal team back in the day, this would have been an easy one. There would have been 9 of them. But where are you going to take your bogey team this year?
Yeah, I was going to go Aston Villa as well, for the reasons that Jacob laid out. But to put some other potential candidates in order as well, Newcastle, I think, are still really tricky. They've still got an opportunity to hurt us on the break, a good attacking unit. If they do get Gahey over the line, I don't know what the latest is with that, but I expect them to be a bit more defensively sound. Pope back in goal instead of Dubravka is a big upgrade. Great shot stopper, if not great with his feet. And the other one is another claret and blue merchant, but it's West Ham. I know we've talked about them a few times. I think that Lopetegui will get. When he came in at Wolves, he had them purring early doors. And it was only because he walked out that it kind of sent it into a bit of a spiral. But he had made some really shrewd signings. He's done the same thing at West Ham. And I think they already have the player base to be able to build a really solid squad. Considering they're a team that already got 1 win off us in the league last year, I think West Ham might cause us problems again next year.
All right, it gets pretty hard by the time it gets to me because you've all used up the good ones. I'm going to shine a light on a bogey team of the past. Southampton, they're back in the Premier League and they are ready to hurt us. We get down to that south coast and there's something in the air. Doesn't matter how bad they are. Even in the season they got relegated, they were causing us harm. So Southampton are going to be my bogey team. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Champions League prediction. Matt, what are Arsenal going to do in the Champions League? It's our second year, made the quarterfinals in our first year against Bayern Munich, and they did hurt us. Can we go a step further or regress? What do you think?
I think quarterfinals again. It all depends on the draw, obviously, but I think we'll settle in. I think we'll be more used to it. But I don't think we've got the squad to do Premier League and Champions League all at the same time. So I'm going to go quarterfinals. I think we're still missing a bit of nous. We don't seem comfortable yet. We weren't able to play our proper game against Bayern Munich. In any of the Champions League this year, we didn't quite see them ourselves. So I think it's going to be another year of acclimatization before potentially we go on and win it next year. But another year of acclimatization.
Johnny, where are you going with your Champions League prediction?
I've got us going further. I'm saying semis minimum this year. I'll be surprised if we don't do semis. The thing is, based on precedent and based on, history, when Arteta has a go at things, and, he comes back, he usually starts improving, I know the league's a little bit different. You can go up and down because you have different cycles. But in terms of getting to know a competition and doing better, he burst into the FA Cup and won it straight away, in half a season. But I feel like he's someone that learns the opposition, learns how to tailor a team. And obviously, when you think, apart from that kind of down period, when you think about how he's not only got us back into top 4, but missed that step and then started getting us to go challenging for a league probably ahead of time, I think we could be really flirting with winning that competition this year. And I had to Google where the final was going to be held. It's in the Allianz Arena next year. So, we'll all be booking our tickets if we do get there. We'll get over to Germany at the very least. But yeah, I think that will be a familiar ground for us based on last year. And I think we can do at least the semis next year.
Jacob, where do you think we're going to finish in the Champions League?
I agree with Johnny. I'll go one step spicier. I think we'll get to the final. There's one team. There's one team I'm scared of, and it's Real Madrid. One team. And apart from
there
that,
as well.
Apart from that, I'm not scared of anyone. And I still, this is kind of a conditional thing. I still think we're going to do something big in the transfer window. There was an Edu quote from America where he said, I think you're all going to be very happy by the end of the window. I think this Mikel Merino thing, we seem to have done it, but we're stalling because there's something bigger we want to do. I think something big's coming, and I think it's going to be that. I felt against Munich, we lacked one more world-class player who could just make a difference. Just one more. One more who's on the level of Saliba, of Saka, of Rice, of Ødegaard. And I think that's what we're going to add. So, yeah, I think we can get to a final, mate. There's one team I'm scared of.
Magic. All right. I'm with you. I think we're going to reach the final this year. I think we'll ultimately be disappointed in that final. But Madrid don't scare me as much as Manchester City. I think Manchester City are the big concern, but hopefully
Same.
by the time we get to that part of the season, they'll be in a bit of a mess for a whole number of reasons. All right, final one
And
before we get into.
Also, we scare Madrid. They've got a dreadful record against us in Europe. We're the only
I
team.
don't know about that.
Well, they have a dreadful record. Check it out. Our record against Real Madrid is their record against us is not good. They've been beaten more times than they've beaten us. And at the end of the day, I was like Jacob. The reason why I said semi-finals is I think that there might be a signing that might still come in that will push us into at least finals and maybe winning it. But we'll see. I'm not going there yet until I see who's coming in.
All right, let's go. Let's get into the meat, the real meat. Most improved player of the season. We've got two sections here. We've got most improved player and dark horse. Most improved player is somebody that's probably not doing very well that can kick it up a level or take it from good to great. And then we have a dark horse section, which has tripped me up a few seasons running. Just a player that you expect to do something incredible. Jacob, who is going to be your most improved player next season?
Jesus. I think we're getting back. I think what we're doing with Havertz is actually incredibly smart. You essentially someone who can do all the running to save his knees. And on his day, I mean, I was there again for that Leverkusen game. Beats 3 players, bottom corner. He's got magic in his boots that I don't mind saying no other player at Arsenal has in the middle of the pitch in terms of just being able to shrug 3 players off and put a ball in the bottom corner. I think the Havertz thing, the two of them together is really smart because Havertz can do the physical stuff and just leave him space. I could look really stupid with this, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get to the end of the season, he's got 4 goals and he ends up going to Napoli for 40 million quid. I'm going to stick my neck out. I think Jesus.
Matt Kandela, most improved.
It's the hope that kills you. I'm going Jesus as well.
Yes.
All the news coming out, the aura, the invincibility. He looks sharp. He's got a new haircut. His cheekbones are back. His knee looks good. He was training with Neymar all summer. We're fucking desperate for a number 9 who scores goals. So I'm going to go Gabby Jesus. And I predicted it on the Cancer Podathon. I said, this is my prediction. Jesus scores more goals than Cole Palmer this year.
Woo! Imagine Jesus' wife. Oh, who are you training with this summer? Oh, Neymar, the most notorious shagger in world football. You'll be like, oh, for fuck's sake. Johnny, are you gonna join in the propaganda run here, or are you gonna pick somebody different for your most improved player?
Yeah, I'm not going Jesus. I mean, I don't even agree with that one. To be fair, I've seen enough. I've been hurt too many times. So, wish him all the best. I'm just not convinced by looking spicy in pre-season. Doesn't get me wet anymore. Now, I am actually going to go a little bit left field, and I'm going to say Bukayo Saka because it's relative, right? Now, if you want to, pick someone who was absolutely dreadful last year and they have an average season this year, you might say, oh, it's a big improvement. But when you're talking about being able to go from being a guy who maybe scores, 12 to 15 goals a year in the Premier League, and then making that jump to someone who's getting over 20 goals in the Premier League, becoming, dare I say, the out-and-out best player in the league, that's a bigger jump. It might seem smaller because you're already good, but going from being very good to top of the shop, that is a massive jump, even though it seems only small. Much like Arsenal, who want to go, make a giant leap from second to first. And so I'm actually going to say most improved player is going to be Bukayo Saka because I think it's going to be a, case closed, world-class talent, best player in the year, best player in the league next year.
Love it. I'm going to go a bit left field, as in left wing. I'm going to go Gabriel Martinelli. I think he had a terrible season last year, interrupted by that horrible gash in his foot. Don't think he was at his best. He was a heads down merchant most of the year. Thought he got overshadowed by Trossard. But we forget he's an absolute baby in footballing terms, even though it feels like he's been around for absolutely ever. I think he's going to push into 15 to 19 goals this season. I think he's going to get 6 or 7 assists. And I think he's going to get a good run of fitness and prove that he is our Alexis Sanchez of this era. He's going to be our bang-bang player. And he's going to show us all that we were wrong to question whether he would be an Arsenal player next season. All right. Next one, dark horse of the season, Matt Kandela. We've made some errors on this one in the past. Are we going to rectify it? Are you going to get it right? Where are you thinking?
Pete, sorry, just before we go into Dark Horse, right? These are the questions now that we've moved on to, where we actually put them out to our patrons as well, because not only is it good for us to get out here, us for, putting out our wild posits as to what we think is going to happen this year, but also we wanted to speak to our patrons and get their views on how they think it's going to go. And we're just taking the top votes for each category. And in most improved player, Martinelli was the leader out of that. So the hive mind of the AOP patrons, they have gone with Martinelli. In second place was going to be Jesus with 26%. Martinelli got 37%. So let's have it logged. The AOPers say Martinelli, like you, Pete, is going to be the most improved.
Lovely. So where are we going with the dark horse candidate, Matt? Where are you thinking?
I'm going Thomas Partey, because the way we're talking about him, everyone's acting like he's finished. And everyone's just like, no one's even mentioning him. But the reality is that if you said he was going to miss half the season last season, you'd say we're in trouble. And I know we signed Declan Rice, but he made no real contribution last season. But on his day, he is one of the top 3 central midfielders in the Premier League. And everyone seems to have forgotten about that. And I think when he's match fit, when he's sharp, when he's playing for his future, when no one's talking about him, I think he could be a dark horse of the season. I think he could inspire us and get some man of the match performances in some of the toughest, biggest games that we have this season.
Johnny, dark horse of the season.
Well, I think that's a really good shout. And this is probably the most ambiguous category because you can take it in a lot of different places. Even when I was drawing up the poll for Patreon, I put Calafiore in there because at the end of the day, yes, he's a signing, but no one knows.
You can't have that. That's stats padding. That's stats padding, Johnny.
I'm not going there anyway. I'm not. I'm just saying that some would be out there trying to. Not me, mate. I'm too bold with mine. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say Ethan Nwaneri. I don't expect it's just going to be junk minutes this season. I think he's going to have an impact. I think he's ready. I think he looks like I'm just getting young Cesc Fabregas vibes. I'm getting that kind of ilk, young Jack Wilshere. This guy looks credible. When he shows up, he looks like he's always on the turn. The vision's there. And the mentality just looks right. So I don't think this guy is just going to be a guy who we only get to see in pre-season. I think he's going to be playing not only your Carling Cups, but I think you might even see him in an FA Cup squad and getting some game time. And don't be surprised if 4 or 5 games this year in the Premier League, he comes on late on as well. And I think that he might start to impress. So I'm going with Ethan Nwaneri.
Ooh, love that. Okay, Jacob, where are you going?
Timber. Yuri Timber. He's kicking the door down. He's going to be part of the core of the team. He's going to be part of the spine of the team. I don't know who comes out. I couldn't give you a name. Don't know whether it's Ben White. Don't know whether it's Gabriel Magalhaes. I think he does all the things that Partey used to do for us. Receive the ball in tight spaces, go around people, through balls. I think he gives us the progression that Declan Rice maybe can't do yet in the middle of the pitch. And he speaks and looks like a captain. I think he's going to be part of the spine of the team. And I think he's going to be part of the reason we're really, really, really good this year. Timber.
All right.
I mean, that's not as dark horse, is it? That's a grey horse. There's a lot of hype around
Johnny, have you got him in your starting 11?
Right now? Well, he was injured from the last game, wasn't he? But if everyone's fit, I haven't started.
Where?
Yeah, I'd start him.
Left back?
I'd start him at left back. That's how I would go. But
guys, there's a saying, a broken clock is right.
Don't do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Fabio Vieira. Fabio Vieira, 3 years running. 3 years running and back in. The man has got the bit between his teeth. His contract is running out in a couple of seasons. He knows it's back to Portugal if he doesn't make it this year. And Arteta's going to roll the dice, and he's going to be the new Mesut Ozil. He's going to be the lightweight Mesut Ozil. He's going to get assists. He's going to get goals. He's going to score free kicks. He's taking Martin Odegaard out the running by the end of the season. Fabio Vieira, I'm back.
You just
3
don't
years
want,
running.
You don't want your credibility, do you? You could have let everyone forget what you've said in recent years. You
That's
could have
what
just
I
said,
want.
turn the page, but no, you're there.
I'm Fabio.
Good money after bad.
That's the
Never
number
mind,
one dark
broken
horse you can go
clock.
for.
Broken clock. This clock's on fire. This clock's going to set the house on fire.
Salvador
It's fucked.
Dali, it's melting.
People are going to be sharing this post. They're going to be saying, Pedro, no. All right, let's move on to the next one. Top goal scorer, Matt Kandela, who's going to score the most goals for Arsenal. Bit of a difficult one. We don't really have an favourite here.
Bukayo Saka.
Oh, sorry. Before we get on to that, we've got to do the patrons. So the patrons did say Ethan Nwaneri as well, with 56%.
Okay.
So our AOPers, their hive mind, they go for Nwaneri on that. Sorry, Matt, over to you.
Bukayo Saka, top scorer. The pens is going to help. It's going to be the thing that lifts him. I think there could be a number of players around 15 goals, 12 to 15 Premier League goals, but I think the pens get him above 20 this season.
Specific number, please.
I'm going to go 21 Premier League goals.
Jacob Hawley.
Yeah, I'm joining you. I want to go Saka as well, but I think he's going to hit 28 all comps. I think he's going to go mad. Johnny, right? I think you're right, mate. I think that's going to be the thing. Is he turns 23 this year, and I think this is when he goes Mo Salah levels. I think this is when he becomes unquestionably one of the best players in the league. And yeah, I think he'll hit close to 30 all comps. I think he's going to go nuts.
Johnny, top scorer.
Yeah, Saka again. I'd say 22 in the league. Seems like, with penalties, that seems like where he could be getting. It could be even more. It just depends if he stays fit throughout that season. But it's time for him to start breaking through the 20-goal margin. And when teams have people who score 20-plus goals, you start winning leagues. So not everyone, obviously, not everyone can. But you kind of feel like you need to have it. It's very rare to be able to win a league title without someone who's breaking through that 20-goal barrier. And I think Saka will do it this year.
I'm going to go Kai Havertz. Going to score 25 goals. He's going to play the most games. I think he's going to get goals from left eight, and he's going to get goals as a striker. I think he'll play the most minutes this season. I think he's coming in with 25.
Well, those were the two leading ones with our patrons. Kai Havertz got 40% of the vote, but the AOP hive mind have suggested that Bukayo Saka will be our top scorer with 48%.
Woof! All right, Johnny, going to go to you on this one. Player of the year.
Player of the year. I can't. It would be a bit silly for me to have given, put Saka down as most improved because he's going to move into that completely undeniably world-class category and score 22 goals in the Premier League. So it kind of, ergo, it's going to be Bukayo Saka. He's going to be player of the year. And also, if there was one other determinant factor on that is I don't think you can give it to Martin Odegaard for 3 years on the bounce. I mean, last year was dubious, as everyone knows. I believe it was. But I think they'll be on the lookout for someone new next year, and I think Saka will do it with basically a unanimous haul.
Jacob, where are you going? Your player of the season?
I think, if we're all correct that Saka's going to become one of the best players in Europe and score stupid amounts of goals, it will be him. The other because we're talking about a guy who's going to have 2 years left of his contract by next summer. I'm going to say William Saliba. That is a man who needs some plaudits soon. That is a man. He didn't miss a game last season. He is unquestionably one of the top 2 or 3 best centre-backs in the world, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be the best by the end of this season. And you might need to start giving him Player of the Year awards, money, houses, anything to keep him in London. Just give him the website. I don't care. Let him run it. Give him a statue. You've got to make Saliba stay, because I'd say it's one thing you learned from pre-season. We're a very different team with and without William Saliba, and he's irreplaceable, mate.
Love it. Matt Kandela, where are you going with your player of the season?
Martin Odegaard. If Saka is the arrow that pierces the defence, Martin Odegaard is the goddamn bow. He is the guy who makes us tick, even some of his performances in pre-season, some of those passes. We've got so used to the exceptional quality that he has that we barely notice it. But he is our Kevin De Bruyne. He is going to be the guy who positions himself as the best midfielder in the world by the end of the season. I'm going Martin Odegaard.
All right. Listen, this is controversial, and I don't want to say why. I'm just a bit concerned about Bukayo Saka, and he's never gets injured, and I'm just worried about that. So I'm going to put money
Pete,
on.
if you do Fabio Vieira, you have to stop the blog.
I have to
you have
just
to give
cut
up
myself
the
out. I have to give it up. Done. I'm going to go Kai Havertz, player of the season. I think the fans really grew to love him, and if he carries off where he left off last season, I think it could be an immense season for him, and I think he's going to play a lot of minutes. All right, we're going to go to Matt for your top 4 prediction, because I know, Matt, you've got a drop. Matt, what's the top 4 looking like in the Premier League this season? How do you see it playing out?
I see it playing out like last year, and maybe that's just recency bias, but I think actually maybe just a little bit of a reverse. I'm going to go 4th Liverpool, 3rd Aston Villa, 2 Manchester City, and number 1, and finally champions after a long, long wait, Arsenal.
Woo! Love that. Love that. That's bold. Johnny, where you going? What's your top 4 looking like?
Well, first of all, we've missed that, the last one, so I will not relent on this. The AOPers, the Hive Mind for Player of the Year, they said Martin Ødegaard was going to be the Player of the Year, just beating out Saka. Ødegaard 37%, Saka 32%. So, I think we're going to win it. I know that means nothing around these parts, because every year I've said we're going to win it. But I don't care. I didn't feel like a mug when we came up slightly short last year. And this year, for me, we've improved. Man City have got a little bit worse. So I think everything is moving towards us. The only thing that I would kind of bundle up with this prediction, which would leave a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, is I think that now, because this hearing with Man City's been brought forward, I'm now really worried that they have cut a deal. They're going to take a points hit. They virtually stated that you're not going to win the league this year. It might be a 20-point. I think it's going to be a 20 to 24 point hit. City are going to end up, obviously staying up, but they're going to be in a lower half of the league, and we're going to end up running away with it on that point. But I want to make sure that we win the league with a points kind of coefficient to them without the points deduction, where we would have won it anyway. That's what I want to see. But I know there'll also be some detractors who go, oh, City weren't trying because they knew they couldn't win it. So either way, I think by hook or by crook, this will be the year that we win the league. I think we've got a squad that's capable of doing it. And I think that our chances will get even better if we do make that big signing that Jacob and I have just talked about. And that might be in the form of a Osman style last minute supermarket sweep, but we'll see.
Jacob, where's your top 4 going to be this year? What are you thinking?
So I'm with Johnny. I'm not going to have City in my top 4 because I think they've got big points deductions coming. And I will quickly say I agree with Johnny. I would rather beat City to a title without them having any deductions. I want to kill the beast while it's strong, but I don't think that will happen. I think they're going to get hit hard. So top 4, Arsenal top. I think Liverpool are going to come second. I think Aston Villa are going to come third. And I think Chelsea are going to come fourth. I think Chelsea will come fourth. Chelsea they've got too many good players. Like, you go through that Chelsea team, if they can keep Nkunku fit, he's a really, really, really good player. Palmer is a really, really, really good player. Caicedo is a really, really, really good player. Cucurella, really, really, really good player. Colwell, really, really good player. Fofana, really, really, really good player. Who knows? Reece James might play more than 4 games this season. They've got too much talent now. If you keep rolling the dice, you will hit some sixes. And I think the rest of the league just looks too weak. I don't think Spurs get close to them. I don't think United get anywhere near them. And so, yeah, I think Villa and Chelsea make up the top 4 with us and Liverpool.
I realised that I didn't actually do the rest of my top 4. I was just besotted with telling that Man City weren't going to win it. But if Man, I'll just do the ones with and without City in. So I think it's going to be Arsenal. With City, it would be City second, obviously. And then I think it's going to be United. And then I think it would be Tottenham. Now, if City get scurfed out, I think we'll continue that. So it'll be United second, Tottenham third. And I think Chelsea and Liverpool would be battling for fourth. And I think Liverpool would get in there. So I'll go Arsenal, Man United, God forbid, second, Tottenham third, and Liverpool fourth.
The interesting thing with the top 4 this year is I feel like somebody's getting into the top 4 that sacked their manager. That doesn't often happen. or maybe it does. I just haven't looked. I just guessed that. I just completely made that up off the top of my head. But I'm with you guys. I don't think City are going to be in contention at all this season. I think I'm writing them out. I think Arsenal, teams with stability. I think it's going to be Arsenal. Then I think it will be Liverpool, and then I actually think if Chelsea get a good start, the Europa Conference or whatever they're in isn't a big concern. And when you've got 462 players, you're not going to be affected by fitness. They've also got a lot of young players as well that don't really react the same way to European football as more older players would. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Chelsea there. And then I've got between. I think Villa are going to fall away badly. I think once Emery has 3 games a week to deal with that Aston Villa squad, I think he's going to have some problems at Champions League level, because you can't rotate as hard early on in the season. Don't think they got the squad for it. Then I think it's between Man United and Newcastle, and I think Newcastle. I don't think this Man United squad is very good. And I'm not quite sure that they have the talent ID of managers that can come in and fix it. And if Gareth Southgate comes in, Man United aren't going to make top 4. So I'm maybe going to throw Newcastle in as my dark horse to squeeze in last minute. So,
mate, you can make a case. You can make a case for a really good Newcastle starting 11: Isak, Gordon, Barnes, Jolinton, Guimaraes, to who's an Italian gambler, to Tonali, and then back for Livramento. If they get Gurhi, that's a great signing. Sven Botman, the young left back they got from Chelsea, he's looked really good.
They got no European football.
Yeah, there's a good team there. If they stay fit, but they just get so many injuries.
I think the bottom. Do you know what? My 4th place in mine, I would actually change, and I think that Aston Villa will get into my top 4 over Liverpool, and over Chelsea, but and over Newcastle. But it's so interesting because weirdly, I actually think that the places I'm most sure of, or outside of Arsenal, I think City obviously second if they don't get points deduction, but I actually think United are going to be weirdly consistent this year. I think they're going to be better. They're not going to be able to win the league, but I think they're going to be a bit better. But every other team after that, Chelsea, Tottenham, Newcastle, Villa, and Liverpool, if you told me in any of those orders, there would be no shock there. None of them.
Johnny, how do you have more faith in United than Liverpool? I think Liverpool have got the best front line in the league still, between Núñez, Salah, Jota, Gakpo, Diaz. You look at Man United. What's the front line there? Xerxes. So
the reason why I think that basically I think United have been an absolute cowboy operation for a long time, but the fact that they've stuck with Ten Hag, I actually think they'll start to see certain fruits. I don't see him as being an elite manager, but he's a good manager. He's a lot better than what he has shown so far, and I think that at times, at key moments in Premier League seasons, the teams that go with stability have an opportunity to jump all of the ones that are in flux. So Liverpool will have good spells. And bearing in mind that a lot of their castles are they're aging. You've got your pillars of strength like Van Dijk getting old all the time. Salah, for me, I think it is 50-50 that we start seeing the serious waning now with Mohamed Salah, that he can't quite get back to what he used to be. And it might actually be that we talked about Saka getting there. I think it might be a real changing of the guard. And so, yeah, they've got a lot of players that can come in. Jota doing really well. But I don't rate Núñez. The guy is just completely inconsistent. But the fact that they're going to lose some stability at the back in terms of, I don't find them as solid as they used to be. And obviously, without Klopp organising them, I think they might have a knock-on effect. I just think United have a habit of sneaking games you never would have thought they would have. They weirdly beating City in games and stuff. I think they might have a general improvement. And with the likes of Mainu, with the likes of what's the other? Is it Diallo, the other young boy? He looks quite good as well. And I think that Højlund will do well this year. So, yeah, I think they'll do better than what most people are thinking. They would be my dark horse for the league, if you like.
I think I'm with Jacob on this. Ten Hag was a dead man walking towards the end of the season. Even his little star boy signing, who's the fidget spinner guy? What have I forgotten his name?
Anthony.
Even the fidget spinner was trapping off about being made to play left back in FA Cup semi-final or whatever it was. I think he was a dead man walking towards the end of last season, and the FA Cup saved him. Well, actually, what saved him was Man United dithered. So now all of the players in that dressing room know, United spent 3 weeks talking to every manager in Europe, and we got turned down left, right, and centre. De Zerbi didn't want us. Tuchel didn't want us. And I think that carries over into this season. I don't think you can recover from that as a manager. And I still look at their squad and I'm like, who's coming in and fixing that? They've got so many fundamental flaws. Like Casemiro's on 400 grand a week. Doesn't look like Saudi are going to come in for him. Lenny Yoro was their big bet. And we've seen 18-year-old defenders don't really survive in the Premier League. You couldn't survive 33 minutes with Gabby Jesus. And I just don't feel like I don't feel like this new era. It feels it doesn't feel any different to the old one so far. Throwing massive amounts of money at young players and throwing massive amounts of money players that don't really fit the bill. Like Joshua Zirkzee, does he really move things forward? 23 years old, barely capped for an average Dutch side at the Euros. I also not a massive fan of Man United, so I'm kind of hoping that it doesn't work out for them as well. So
I love their
in
agony.
Opinion.
But you know how Tottenham constantly take the lead early on in the season, and people go, "Oh, Tottenham going to win the league," and most people with a brain go, "No, they're definitely not," and then they crash down, and you enjoy it. I think we might see something like that with United, where they make a good start, and by Christmas they're in and around it. And then they fall off on the back end when it starts getting really meaningful. Because I don't think they've got the squad to be able to maintain it. But they're not as shit as what they looked last year. They ain't. They're not that. But they're not as bad as they look. I promise you. I think there's going to be a bit of a bounce back. I don't think they're, as you say, all the foundations are not good enough to mount a league challenge, for instance. But I think there might be a little bit of a redemption arc coming. So yeah, we'll see.
I disagree. I think they're worse. I honestly think they're worse. I mean it. I think they're worse. I think they flattered to deceive last season. I thought they got lucky at the end of games. I thought they got good decisions. They conceded as many shots as the worst team in the league, Sheffield United. I think they're shit. And I think the players that were bad last season are going to get even worse because they're getting older and less fit. Casemiro can't run. I think they're fucked. I think they're so fucked.
One last topic before we finish out. It is notable that we didn't talk about Spurs at all. Jacob, why haven't we spoken about Spurs at all on this podcast? Matt Law's writing pieces in the Telegraph saying that the strategy's smart, the player signings are good. Why haven't we spoken about Big Ange Postecoglou after he mugged off the Spurs fans last year? And it was the only manager to accrue record points in the opening 11 games and not make top four.
It's a funny one with Spurs. I think my apprehension with Spurs is I still think they're going to be relying on players that you maybe can't rely upon. I still think that Son and James Maddison are hugely important to them when they're good. And I think Maddison, how old's Maddison now? 27? We know he can't play more than 30 games in a season. Son's getting older and he's not getting sharper. He's not getting fitter. He's not getting more reliable. And I think I think Solanke is a fairly smart signing. I don't know about you boys. I'd have been more scared of Derby Day if they'd got Ivan Toney. I think Solanke is probably a smarter signing than Toney. I would have hated it if they'd got Ivan Toney. That would have been a horrible Derby Day if he'd have come against us where he clearly wanted to go and now he was a Spurs man. I just think they rely upon players who can't be relied upon, and I still think that system that Ange just won't relent from, it leaves you too open, and they'll just drop points. You just know that when they come up against a really good team like City, they'll just lose both games. You know that when they come up against a Liverpool who are stacked with pace, they'll lose both games because they won't change their approach. And so I think there's too many instances they'll drop points, too many players who won't be consistent enough for them. And you know, we think about a Spurs team of the last sort of 5-10 years who had world-class players in Son and Kane. And as smartly as they've recruited, they don't have that anymore. They just don't. There's no one. Who are you terrified of? Come that September game, who are you guys terrified of for that Derby game?
Out of Spurs?
Yeah, if Brennan Johnson.
I think Solanke's a good signing, mate. I really do, and I think that he's going. Yeah, but the thing is they've got so much kind of creative talent. I think Brennan Johnson's, industrious and he's good. He bothers, but I think Son had a down year last year. I expect he'll bounce back. I actually think that Tottenham or Spurs are similar to United. I think that them two are going to be in and around it, and I think they'll make up the top four with City if City don't get done, and that's why it could be City or Spurs, Spurs or United that way round, and they're both teams that seem a little bit like you can't trust them. But in a league like this where there's so much change, I think that the Tottenham players will start to understand what Ange wants to do a bit more. And one of the biggest issues I think that Tottenham have is they rely too much on key individuals. That system that you talked about. Listen, it works in short spells because look at them. In the first half of the year, they were ripping it up. They're top of the league for a little while. They can beat big teams. I don't think that they would fear facing Man City either. They've got a great record against someone like a team like Man City over the years. But when certain players go down for them, they don't have adequate replacements to come in to be able to play to the same level. So I think that Tottenham, with a know-how of finishing top four over the years, I think they'll find their way back in next year, annoyingly. And as I say, like, as much as we might want to all go to the new shiny thing, what's Liverpool going to do with Slot and what's Maresca's Chelsea going to look like? The reality is United and Spurs just have a little bit more know-how. Obviously, Liverpool have definitely had it, but they've got a new manager. I'm taking that on board. But I think Tottenham and United will use a little bit their nous and edge past some of those other teams late on.
I did a bet earlier with Matt, Johnny. I did a bet earlier with Matt about Neto's goals. I'll happily do another bet, another 20 quid. I think that both Poch and Ten Hag will have left their clubs by the end of the season.
Well, Poch has already left his club.
Sorry, not Poch. Sorry, Poch. Ange. Sorry, I'm so used to him being Spurs. I reckon Ange. Like one way or another, I think he'll be out of Spurs, and I think Ten Hag will be out of United by the end of the season.
I would. That's a good. I'd say that.
I'd take the bet. I'd take the bet if only one of them leaves, because I think both of those teams, despite me building them up there, I think either one of them could have an absolute disaster next year. I would be surprised if both of them do. If United just went into full-blown meltdown mode, I'd be like, all right, chalk it up to United being an absolute clusterfuck. The thing that gives me pause with Spurs is actually when we had that Arsenal, the North London derby game towards the end of the season, and when he started calling out the fans, I think the fans loved Ange before that. But afterwards, there was a little bit of needle between them. Like, don't question us, mate. You know what I mean? Like, we're doing what we want to do, and we're a small club, and this is the only thing we live for. And I think that ultimately, stuff like that can cause a little bit of needle, and it can continue. So, I wouldn't be surprised if one went.
Here's the thing with Spurs. Daniel Levy only prioritizes two things: Champions League qualification and making finishing above Arsenal. Didn't get either of those last season. He's invested 300 million in him, and he came out and he slagged off the fans and basically said the same thing Conte said. There's a problem at the core of this club. Don't think he's getting away with that. The interesting thing with Dominic Solanke as well, he's played 140 Premier League games. He's got 29 goals. He got 21 of those last year. What was happening before that? Left Liverpool in 2019.
One good season at 26.
Yeah, but you'd want your one good season to be last season rather than 5 years ago. So maybe
if you had to choose, but you'd also love him to have had two.
Yeah,
in nearly 10 years in the Premier League.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think they think that they've got another Harry Kane on their hands, and I'm not sure at this stage of life. I think he might have just had a one-hit wonder of a season.
And we just have to say, because I've got to finish them all off. Our AOP as the hive mind think that we will be champions with 82, whopping 82%. It's the most dominant vote out of all of the different categories. They think that we're going to win the league. So there's a lot of confidence in the AOP community.
All right, we love it. Okay, that brings us to the end of the predictions podcast. Hold us accountable throughout the whole season. We're going to come back at the end and see who won and who lost. Fabio Vieira, dark horse. Remember it. Said it here 3 times. Going to get it right at some point. If you're listening to this on free to wear, because this is free to wear before the start of the season, and you like membership podcast, go to patreon.com/the Arsenal Opinion. Sign up this weekend and get all of the live podcasts throughout the season. And that's our Thursday therapy session that was a takeover for predictions. Thank you for listening. And remember, we love the 5-star reviews. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Johnny. We'll cue up the music and we'll say ciao for now.